Hello, friends. I'm Jess Baldwin of Jess Baldwin Voice Studio, and I'm so happy that you all are joining me today. Trying something new with some live streaming on Facebook and YouTube with a new app. So please feel free to let me know if something's not working properly. You can let me know in the chat. So, if we haven't met, again, I'm Jess Baldwin, and I am passionate about helping people find their voices in an authentic way, and also helping them reconnect with their inner artist, and then helping them share their music with the world in a way that is fulfilling and powerful. So, that's what I do at Jess Baldwin Voice Studio. So, today, we're going to talk about what it means to be original and how you are and can be original in your work and in your voice. So human beings are innately creative. And that is something that some people find hard to believe if they have had some experiences where their creativity was stifled in some way. But the reality is human beings do love to create. Now, that may not be like singing for everyone or painting for everyone. Everyone has their own creativity outlet. It's usually more than one outlet that feels really good for them. But I interestingly find that in my voice studio, there are a lot of people who struggle with feeling like they are actually creative people and that they have the capacity to create art with their voice and with their music. So a lot of them are living with stagnant creativity as a result in their body that is not finding a way to come into the world, and their souls are not finding a way to come into the world through their creativity, and that can be a struggle. So they want to sing or they want to write music. Some people want to find their voice after they were maybe corralled into a style of music that ended up not really being what was the most fulfilling for them or felt the truest to who they were. Some people find their creativity stifled because they are because they're dealing with trying to find their place in the music market, and maybe they're feeling kind of yanked around by the pressure to make music that matches certain trends, or that people are telling them they have to do to make money. So they're really struggling to connect with their creativity in a way that feels good. And so for most people, they find the pressure of being original really big and kind of paralyzing. And they're terrified to move forward with the creativity because they're afraid they can't be original enough. And that's scary. And so they just sort of stay where they are in terms of the amount of things that they're putting out into the world with their voice and their music. So if this describes you, or if you know someone who might benefit from hearing some ideas around this today, please invite them to the live stream, or you can share this with them later. Obviously, it'll be available for replay. So as we go through this, please feel free to, if you have a moment where you feel like you're having an aha about something, you can use the hashtag insight and put that in the chat and share any takeaways that you have around that topic, so that we can kind of learn from each other about what's important. So let's start with the first idea, and that is the reality that you are an original. And some of my favorite thoughts on this that I'm going to share today, quite a few thoughts from her, from Julia Cameron. And in my own journey around these ideas, her book, The Artist's Way, was incredibly important, helping me figure out how to create. And I discovered her after I had already done 2 music degrees in voice and felt that there was something more that I needed to be doing. A voice teacher after college recommended that book to me, and it started a whole new journey. So here's some of Julia's words on that topic. She says, Art lies in the moment of encounter. We meet our truth and we meet ourselves. We meet ourselves and we meet our self-expression. We become original because we have something specific, an origin from which our work flows. And each of us is our own country, an interesting place to visit. It is the accurate mapping out of our own creative interests that invites the term original. We are the origin of our art, its homeland. Viewed this way, originality is the process of remaining true to ourselves. So the reality is everyone is original because only you have had the experiences that you have had in your life. Only you have the preferences that you have. And so everything you create is going to come from a place that no one else can come from, right? No one else has your sphere of influence in terms of who you're going to share with and what you are experiencing in the world. So the first thing to know is that you are an original. You have been, you always will be. And your art is going to come out of that place, which will make it special. So here's the other thing to know. Art itself is never original. It is always a remix of influences. So there is no art that came out of nowhere. Every artist that you love, that you think is original, you just happen to enjoy the remix of influences that they are putting out into the world. And there's a great book I recommend around this called Steal Like an Artist. Julia talks about that as well in her book. But Steal Like an Artist, if you want a real short, fun read, that's a good one. And he just talks about how it is okay, and not only okay, but necessary to steal from other artists and to remix them into who you are. And he is careful to say that there's a difference between like stealing from just one person all the time, which is kind of just imitation, and it's not really digging into what you can put out into the world. So we want to steal from lots and lots and lots of different artists. So that's true for singers in terms of your sound and your style. You don't want to sound just like one artist all the time. You want to mix together lots of different sounds that are meaningful to you and important to you as you're finding your style. So that is one thing to know, right? It's always a remix. Writer Jonathan Lethem, this is a quote from that Steal Like an Artist book. He says that when people call something original, 9 times out of 10, they just don't know the references or the original sources involved. So again, they were pulling from somewhere as well. So one of the big fears that that people have is that they won't have anything original to offer, right? So just keep that in mind. You will have your own version of the stuff that you're going to mix together. So another fear that people have around originality is that there's no use in even trying because we see that someone else in the world, we feel like they've beat us to it, right? They just put out something that we were thinking of doing, right? Or that it is kind of similar to it. And Julia's answer to that is that if it is too early or too late for a piece of work, its time will come around again. So it is always worth making something, even if you are having some competition-centered blockages around making that art and getting it out into the world. And then another fear that people have is, around originality is that someone else is already doing this and they're doing it better than me, right? So we get all tripped up around the idea that it has to be good, has to be the best. And Julia's thoughts around this, she says, the desire to be better than can choke off the simple desire to be. As artists, we cannot afford this thinking. It leads us away from our own voices and choices and into a defensive game that centers outside of ourselves and our sphere of influence. It asks us to define our own creativity in terms of someone else's. So this is admittedly tough. I mean, I haven't had anyone ever come into my space that didn't have some fear around being afraid that they won't be as good as someone else at what they're doing. But that's never really what art is about, right? So how can we apply some of these concepts today? What are some actions that you can take around these ideas? So first of all, it's important to actually do the work. So that is something that can help us block out some of the fears that we have around, am I original enough? Is my work original enough, right? Are people going to find me interesting? Are they going to think I'm good? Do the work. It doesn't matter, right? Because the purpose of art is that something inside you wants to be born. Something inside you wants to be created and brought into the world. And you owe it to yourself to do that, regardless of how anybody else is going to feel about that work. You will feel better after you create that work. And a great book around this is called The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. And he talks about how there's something called resistance. And he actually sort of personifies resistance as something that we have to fight against every day, right? And that's the war. But that resistance doesn't care about you personally when it is making it difficult for you to actually do the work that day, right? So fear around originality is a kind of resistance, but that it's important to just to do the work. And doing the work will be satisfying in and of itself, and committing to doing that as often as possible, right? Taking actionable steps toward completion of your song or the skill that you want to acquire to create something, right? Actually just doing the thing rather than allowing your brain to focus so much on the fears around it. Second of all, start connecting to who you are and what you love and what you need to say. And this can look like a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But being able to, for some people that looks like therapy, for some people that looks like self-help books, for some people that looks like connecting more to the people around you and seeing how they perceive you in the world and what they feel like you're bringing to the world. For some people, that's journaling. So there's a lot of different ways that this can look, but really getting connected to your truth, so that you are connected to the origin from which your work flows, as Julia mentions. So reading texts that have to do with creativity, it has been really helpful for me. So again, The Artist's Way from Julia Cameron, I mentioned, Steal Like an Artist from Austin Kleon, The War of Art from Steven Pressfield, but also I would recommend Big Magic from Elizabeth Gilbert is a great book. It's got some similarities to Artist's Way, but it can feel a little more playful, maybe, in tone. It's one of my favorites. And we actually have a workshop coming up soon, if that is a kind of action that you would like to take toward this, called the Origins of Artistry workshop. I'm presenting this with my dear, dear friend and colleague, Julie Dean. She and I have both been on a journey of being creative and finding our voices and finding our songwriting voice and our style. In particular, after having been in the classical world and having gotten degrees in that world. So we're going to be walking you through some really specific exercises to dig up some of that information that will help make things a little more clear to you in terms of who you are and what you love and what you're bringing to the world, and what will come through in your music more and have more impact if you'll do the work to do some self-examining around those ideas. So that is coming up. Tomorrow is our last day of early bird pricing. So if you want to do that, I'm going to put the link in the comments for both events so that you can tap into that. And yeah, so that's one of the final things that you can do around these ideas, right? It's just to start doing work. And if doing the work is difficult, start connecting to some people who can help you take the steps. right? I know for me personally, asking for help can be difficult, or has been difficult in the past. So learning to step out and find a coach or a book or a teacher or a friend who wants to do some of the same kind of stuff that I do, so that I can just begin creating without being concerned about how people are going to perceive me. So again, to summarize, the reality is you are an original because there really is no one like you. And you don't have to worry about your work being original, because that's impossible. Everyone's work is a remix of other people's stuff. And you're going to find the remix that works best for you, that feels most like you, and that naturally flows out of who you are and what your life experiences have been. All right, y'all. So thank you so much for joining me today. And again, I'm Jess Baldwin, and I hope you all begin this journey, if you haven't yet, of really diving into your artistry so that your voice and your singing can make an impact in the world that feels fulfilling and powerful for you. Have a great day.